Get ready to ramble.
Good evening, friends, and welcome to Ramblings of a Middle-Aged Card Collector, where we explore the stories, journeys, and creative paths in the hobby we love. Episode 41, From Kodi to Kaitō 84, The Art of Telling Stories. Tonight, we're stepping outside the world of trading cards and talking about something I think every collector can appreciate, the art of storytelling. My guest is award-winning artist, writer, cartoonist, and watercolor painter, Jared Cullum. From his graphic novel Kodi and the upcoming sequel, A Place to Call Home, to Usagi Yojimbo Kaitō 84, Jared has brought some incredible characters and stories to life, and whose work has found its way into some pretty incredible worlds. Tonight, we'll talk about art, storytelling, the creative process, working with Stan Sakai, original art, and so much more. So please join me in welcoming our guest, Jared. Welcome, Jared.
There we go. Hi, thanks very much. Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate you having me on, Matt. I love your show. I was watching episodes while I was working last week, and I really enjoy the show. You have a great voice. You have a very good like radio voice. Like it's and all your intros are all like fantastic.
Oh, thank you so much, man. You're gonna make me blush. I appreciate that greatly. That means a lot coming from an artist. So thank you. That's dope to hear you listen to it while you're working.
Yeah, man. And thanks for having me, man. I really appreciate it. I appreciate you taking the time.
Absolutely. And likewise, I know everyone is busy, especially if you got, schedules and work. And so it's greatly appreciated with everyone who comes in. You got an awesome studio in the background. It looks great. See some cool artwork hanging in the background. Is that original art?
Oh yeah. That's a project I'm working on. I was just trying to set up so I could see the chat too, just in case. Although I see it's coming up too, so I didn't know if I was going to be able to see it or not, and I didn't want to miss anything.
Yeah, you should be able to see it in the StreamYard thing there.
Oh, very cool, awesome, yep. Cool, thanks.
And you could also comment as well if you wanted to.
Oh, nice. Okay, cool. I'll keep that in mind in case something pops up and I want to give someone a better answer. I didn't know. I'm not very good with technology. That's why like everything is hand painted from me, because I just don't really do a whole lot with technology unless I have to. So, yeah, man. Those are some pages that I recently did for Beneath the Trees for IDW. So they're doing a Halloween special. And they have a handful of us that are writing and illustrating stories for it. So some short stories for it. So that's a couple of the pages. I like to, as they're drawing, I usually work a couple up. I'm sure we might get into that stuff, or I don't want to put people to sleep if they're not interested in hearing about the fry cook aspect of what I do. But I usually work like 4 or 5 pages up at a time, so I can do, and then once I finish a page, I usually will hang it up, and then I usually sort of strings across the whole room here. And it helps me because I do a lot in the way of color scripting, which is like before I do the actual painted pages, I do a lot of preliminary kind of sketching with paint so that I can see what the colors are going to look like and use color as a storytelling tool. So, if I'm wanting to make it more somber or sad, like how the lighting will affect that. So I like to be able to hang them up across just to make sure I can kind of check and see how the pages are reading if you're able to stand back from them. I guess, it'd be like zooming out on if you were doing digital pages, but I can't do that. So I hang them up around the studio or the house if it's a longer book, or in chunks of books, and then put them in the scanner afterwards.
That's awesome though, because like just the whole story is like across your whole house.
yeah. Well, they pile up, that between that and I do a lot of outdoor painting, just like plein air painting, which is like a over fancy word for just painting outdoors, and just to kind of collect backgrounds and ideas, and those pile up too. I end up with just piles everywhere of pictures and stuff.
Yeah. I'm a fan when I see you post awesome still painting of like just the outside world. It's just like, God, it's so great. Waterwork.
Well, thank you very much. I love painting outdoors. That's like one of my favorite things. So it's kind of how I got into a lot of this, like at least studying watercolor, at least trying to practice with it. So it's like a means to practice, and then it became its own sort of thing that I became very fixated on, mostly because it's just so hard and you have to learn very quickly because things change so quickly when you're painting outdoors. Like the lighting will change constantly, and people get up and leave and that kind of thing. So you have to learn to paint very directly, which helps a lot when you're trying to do comics, because comics requires a level of speed to try to keep up with deadlines and, you know, that kind of thing.
Oh yeah, for sure. I can only imagine. So when I have a guest on, I like to start at the beginning. So like, how did you first get interested in art and storytelling?
Oh man. Well, I mean, I think my story's not that different from a lot of people in that I started out really passionately loving art and loving drawing and wanting to do art and drawing. I used to carry around, actually, I used to carry around a Usagi Yojimbo action figure in like the early 90s, late 80s. And I would draw, like fill notebooks with little stick figure comics. And I always wanted to do cartoons and comics. That was sort of my, you know, my dream was to get to do that one day. I didn't know what it would look like. I didn't grow up around um, art. Like my parents had a very specific sort of world that they grew up in, and that we lived in for their work. And so the sort of tree branch of like what art could be, it never occurred to me when I was a kid. I didn't know that it never occurred to me that people were like drawing all the pictures, or like concepting, like doing all these different kinds of outlets for different kinds of, you know, art that there is. So I had a kind of limited view on like what you could do, and I think I had what everybody sort of pictured, which was that there's sort of, you know, minimal money or hope in it. So around the age of 16, I just kind of gave up on it. I never had a lot of talent for it either. I was still filling notebooks around that age with basically stick figures, so it just wasn't really clicking. I wasn't really getting it, and so I stopped doing art altogether, and kind of gave up on it. And then eventually ended up around 26. I was like working in graphic design. I ended up doing graphic design because it felt like it was still art, and it was still creative, but it seemed like it was just an easier pathway to not, you know, dying in a ditch or something. So I ended up, I did graphic design I was working for a beer company, and I just couldn't kick the desire to draw and the, you know, wishing I was drawing. And I just had a friend at the time who was like, "Whoa, if you liked it, why don't you just do it again?" And I was like, "Well, there's no point in doing it if I'm not any good at it, and I won't get any good at it." And that sort of was a continual argument with myself over the subsequent years of trying to get into it and learn how to draw, which then became like a hyper fixation. So I just sort of, once I was in, I just sort of got rid of everything in my life. So any kind of video games or anything. I mean, I wouldn't say that's what everybody has to do, but that's what I had to do, because I think I had a lot more ground to try to make up for, given that I was coming from a place of very little natural talent or skill. And so I feel like I had to go all in. So I started, I guess I was probably 26 or so. And I've since then, I've still maintained the same kind of drive, obsessive drive. So I, you know, go to bed thinking about how to get better at drawing, and I wake up thinking about what I can do to try to get better at drawing and painting. And I have a series of exercises I've done since then that I still do, that I'm trying to just get a little bit better, and stuff that I study to try to get better. But it's been that way about, I don't know, maybe 4 to 7 hours every day since then. And I don't expect to slow down. It's sort of its own, especially once I got into painting, because initially I wanted to do, sorry, I'm sort of rambling. I don't want to put people
That's
to sleep,
what we're
but
here
like,
for, brother.
I I I initially got into ink drawing because I thought that I didn't think I would ever close the gap on drawing. So I was trying to do a
Okay.
lot of drawing at the time, of just drawing people in cafes. And I had got kind of deep into figure drawing, like going to the local groups and drawing people and trying to study anatomy. But I didn't think I would ever close the gap on being able to do my own stories with drawing them. So I thought, well, maybe I could get into inking eventually. If I could just get up to a certain level, I might be able to just ink someone else's stuff. So I started really focusing on ink for a long time, and then I what happened was I went to a place that had like a library of comics, and they had a bunch of French comics, and
Okay.
and a bunch of them were colored in watercolor, and it just completely like melted my brain. I was completely hooked. So I had wanted to do inking and some sort of something that had either ink or sort of a strip based cartoon, but the dream was to get to complete a book. And then I went and I saw for the first time for me Mobius and Cyril Pedroza and Jones Farr and Louis Trondheim, and these people who are still sort of my kind of like pantheon of heroes that I look up to. And they were using watercolor and gouache. And I was like, I have to do this. I need to figure out how to do this. So I kind of moved a little bit away from comics for a little bit. I was doing, at the time, everybody was doing web comics. So like, this is like 2009 or 10 or maybe 11. Everybody had autobio comics and web comics at the time, and people were, everybody had RSS feeds, and so I was doing a web comic because it was like a consistent deadline. It was like, at least if I do nothing else, at least I have to do this twice a week or whatever.
Okay.
So I was doing that, and then I kind of withdrew from doing that, and I was like, I need to figure out this watercolor stuff. So I took like maybe it was like 8 months or a year or so. And I really, I was doing mini comics too. So like I was doing a lot of these short, like 20 pagers, and I would print them out, try to sell them for like $2 or trade, mostly just trading people at shows. And I would trade with people or give them to editors and try to like develop like relationships that way with editors and things over the years. And I was doing a lot of these really short, like 20-page stories, but I knew that like the dream was to do like a long story, like a full graphic novel. So I kept doing these short stories, and then I kind of slowed down on doing the comics so much, and I just became really obsessed with plein air painting, and I ended up teaching figure painting and anatomy at that time, and started just getting really obsessed with just getting up early and painting all day long. And trying to figure out watercolor. And then I had basically 3 ideas for stories, and I put those together into one long story because I couldn't come up with an idea that was long. So I had 3 different sort of ideas, and I just put them together, and that's what Kodi was. So I decided to do Kodi, and I put all that stuff into it, and I wanted Kodi to be the thing where I was like, I had been studying the watercolor stuff and the painting nature so much, and I wanted to figure out a way to kind of like bring those things together and make a book out of it. So like I put the ideas together, and I did a ton of sample pages, and then I went to every editor and publisher I could find and knew, and just across the board everybody said no. So for a long time everybody was just blanket no. So that's kind of been the story of my progression, is people saying no, or you should stop this, and then just continuing, to toil and try until
Viva la resistance.
wiggle my way and wriggle my way into doing it, despite the constant rejection. I mean, that's part of it though. It's still that way, even like after having done it for years now full time. It's still a big part of what you do and what you deal with.
Well, that sometimes, is the difference between, a dream and reality, is you were pushing and pushing and pushing, not accepting a no, not accepting any kind of rejection. And that's why, I mean, look at you, man. You're doing incredible things.
Oh, that's very kind of you.
Back in the day, we were just with the figurine of Usagi Yojimbo. You know what I mean? And
yeah,
that's the difference between somebody who just, I really wanted to do that, to the shoes you're living in right now. So, kudos to the persistence that you had.
Well, thanks very much.
Amazing. Yeah. Was there,
It's
you
I don't
mentioned
know. I don't know if it's
Usagi.
I don't know. I don't know if it's I don't know if it's a success story or just one of obsession. I think most people could do pretty much anything if you obsess over it for, I don't know, 10 to 12 years. Could have
Yeah.
probably done anything if I had
Well,
just
that's
kept
it.
trying. But it's yeah, I don't know. But thank you.
But what's that rule of 1,000 or whatever? If you do it 1,000
Yeah,
times,
yeah.
you're a master.
I mean, I kind of like live by that or feel pretty strongly that I live by that kind of idea or rule that I try to like, even if I'm starting a new job, I try to draw the character. Like when we started on Usagi, we had like a lull period where they were sort of working things out with Dark Horse and Dogu, which is the Stan Sakai's publisher,
Mhm.
imprint. And during that lull, me and the writer on the series, I told him I wanted to try to draw the character at least 10,000 times. So every time I was usually I do about sometimes like 10 on a light day, but usually I try to do about 20 figures a day, just
Oh, wow.
from reference or sketching like just characters, or like I'll pull up like a skateboarding video or like a parkour video and just pause it every 2 seconds and do a little quick sketch. They're not like full drawings. They're just a quick
Yeah, yeah.
drawing just to
Just
keep the hand
motion.
moving and keep sort of observing and animating things in my head. And so I switched to drawing Usagi. So I was drawing Usagi at least like 40 times a day. And if I was ever on the phone or in a waiting room or anything, I was just doodling little Usagi, because you don't want, like, especially with that kind of thing too, you don't want the character to look like progressively better too much. Like it's going to happen because you draw them so much. But
Mhm.
so anytime I've learned, because like even with Kodi, there's a pretty distinct difference between the beginning and the end of the book, and same with 2, which is coming out soon, which you can't help. It's just you draw the character so many times in the interim. So to like avoid that arc being too obvious, I tried to draw Usagi just like as many. I didn't keep count. Most like sketchbook stuff I do, I don't really keep anyway. So like most of it's in the garbage somewhere, because I have I go through sketchbooks so fast. I quit buying the books because they were harder to get. So I found a way to bulk order the paper, and then that way I can just sort of draw on it or write grocery lists on it and then just chunk it when it's done, because that also piles up everywhere too,
I was
like old sketchbooks and things.
that put the picture in my mind of like the person who like draws all these schematics but has like crumpled up pieces of paper like in piles all over the room. It's
Yeah.
like I'm not gonna keep them. They're just references, points, So that's cool though. That's what I love to talk, have these conversations, because you find out these little details and these cool little things about just an artist's process or little things. So it's really cool. Was there like a movie or a piece of art or a comic or a book that really inspired you to be in comic books, wanted to go to comic books?
Oh my gosh. I mean, there's been so many, and in like waves, progressive waves. Like when I was a kid, I was really obsessed with animated films. So I didn't really dig into comics until way later. When I was really young, um, I didn't like have access to a lot of them, not because like I wasn't allowed to read them, but um, I had some that I kind of liked. Everybody had, of course, like this is like the early '90s, so everybody had like the Marvel trading cards and stuff like that. But I was um like way more obsessed with animated films. So like when I was really young, I was obsessed with like Disney's Robin Hood and
Love that.
like old era Disney, because
Yeah.
you know in the Xerox era of Disney or whatever, like the time when they sort of like let go of all the inkers and they switched to using a Xerox machine just cranked up really high. Every like one in like like 100 frames or whatever, like it'll flash for just a second, like you can see Milk Call's like structure, like the circle and the crosshairs and whatever the structure, and I used to just be obsessed with that. I probably ruined a lot of VHSs, like pausing and rewinding and pausing and trying to catch the moments when that would happen, so I could just like see it, because it just like would light up to me, because I was just so I was really obsessed with animated films when I was a kid. When I was younger, my mother brought home a VHS copy of, because I think it was a cartoon, so I didn't know what it was at the time, and neither did my mom. It was just in a bin somewhere, but she got a VHS copy of Kiki's Delivery Service, and I didn't know what it was, but that movie just totally shook everything up for me. And it wasn't until later that I figured out what like Studio Ghibli was. But that era of Ghibli to me is particularly influential, and one of my favorite times, which is like Porco Rosso is my favorite. I have like a I have a huge, like a 2-foot red Porco Rosso plane above my desk back there.
Cool.
I love Porco Rosso is probably my favorite, but that era specifically, between like Castle in the Sky, Porco, and Totoro, and that stylistic look that Hayao Miyazaki was doing at that time really speaks to me, because of its I don't like the later ones less. I just love them differently. I love all of the Ghibli films. I'm a big fan, obviously, of their stuff, and obviously with the environments like that I paint, a lot of that comes from studying Ghibli background. So like Ogakatsuo, and there's a bunch of painters that paint for Ghibli that I really love, and love their environments and backgrounds. And I have most of their books usually pinned up around the room too, when I'm working on pages, just because I really love the backgrounds and the storytelling in the backgrounds and the lighting. So definitely like Ghibli. Like I'm getting distracted. But definitely Ghibli films, which I guess is probably obvious from the way I draw things. I like that era. Oh, I was saying that era of Ghibli with Totoro and Porco Rosso. What I love about like Porco Rosso is it is, in the sense that it was sort of a parody of like Casablanca style films. It is, it manages to be overly serious in itself, and at the same time unabashedly like cartoony. So you have like the tone of the like rising fascist, government that's happening, the underscore of that, and how that affects everybody and everybody's lives and things. But also there's like the pirates are just so ridiculous, and like all of the villains, so to speak, which are sort of nebulous in Ghibli films, because no one's like particularly like evil. They just have different like motivations. It's like a little bit different. But they in most Ghibli films, I guess, not, I mean, some of them I guess do have a sort of villain, but I like that that it's unabashedly cartoony, that there's like a silliness to it and an exaggeration. So that was something that really influenced me when I was learning to draw, which is that light can tell a story just as much as words, and light in a scene, in an environment, can make someone feel something in the same way like a violin playing a sad song can make you feel sad. Underscoring a video or whatever, with sad violin music can make people feel a way before they even, you can pull those strings before anything is even said. I think the same thing can be done with lighting, and that became an obsession. I think I would say even then, although I didn't know what I was obsessing over, I was like trying to crack a code by obsessively rewatching Totoro and Porco Rosso and Kiki's Delivery Service at the time, the VHSs or whatever, and trying to figure out how they, especially then, because anime was like so hard to get when I was a kid. It wasn't just like ubiquitous, like, and on streaming services. It was this weird rare gem that you had to know someone, or you had to, someone's older brother or something was in the military and got something, or like somehow you'd get these little pieces of it, or someone at school could burn CDs and got like a bunch of really choppy, terrible old Dragon Ball episodes or Ranma episodes or whatever. It was like this weird little thing. You'd find these gems, and then you'd be ridiculed relentlessly for liking it, So like now, like I feel like it's not so much like something people are picked on for. But when I was a kid, it was like, it was like waiting on the newest episode of Dragon Ball, because it would be like the same repeated 6 episodes of Dragon Ball, Z or whatever. So it was so hard to find. Like you're just watching Sailor Moon at like 5:30 in the morning.
Dude, I was just gonna say, I even watched Sailor Moon, bro. So
because it was something, just something,
Tuxedo
like
Rose, bro.
So trying to figure that out, so that stuff had a huge impact on me, although I sort of like kind of shunned it for years, because I felt like when I was 26 and was getting into drawing, when I was looking around, it seemed like there was such a black hole of a stylistic black hole of like people who get into it, and then they're making manga basically. And I was trying to avoid that, although I sort of just did the same thing. I just kind of fell down a different rabbit hole, because that sort of brings me to the next influence I was going to talk about, which is Sylvain Chomet and French animated films. So it was like initially, Ghibli and Toriyama, stuff like that. The trickle down of Toriyama from Z to like Chrono Trigger, being obsessed with Chrono Trigger when I was a kid.
Cool.
Stuff like that, that I didn't know was Toriyama, but like was still like, looks amazing, so Dragon Quest and Chrono Trigger. So that had a bit of influence on me, but I sort of tried to move away from that when I was drawing and trying to learn how to draw around when I was like 26. The way I got into learning comics was I really liked the framing in Kurosawa films. So I spent I watched all of the Kurosawa films I could get my hands on. And also, this is before everything was on stream. Now it's on like HBO, I guess, or whatever, one of them. But I got all the DVDs, and I would just pause the DVD so like Seven Samurai or Yojimbo or Throne of Blood or whatever that one's called. Anyways, I would pause it every 2 or 3, depending on the scene, 2 or 3 seconds or 2 or 3 minutes, depending on the scene. Because I thought Kurosawa films just looked so cool. And it was another thing that I was saying, that sort of through line that I've been fixated on for my own stuff, which is like trying to figure out how to tell story using light. I think probably first, at least that's how I tend to think, in environment, and then character, and then what they're saying. That's part of why I helped, because I worked with a really great writing partner, Zach Rosenberg, on the Usagi series. And he would write the dialogue, because that was like 10th on my to-do list, because I was always like, and then they say some stuff. But like, it's always like I would pitch in the scenes based on like, it's raining, it's neon lights, it's this, they're doing this, I don't know why, and then he would like thread it together and make them talk. Because I don't tend to think that's part of why I think like Kodi and Kodi too, they're pretty light in terms of dialogue, because I tend to think in pictures more than I do words. So but anyways, Kurosawa films, even though they're black and white, there's still something to the lighting. They're so dynamic and interesting, the camera angles and choices. I'm not a huge film buff, so I don't know like a lot. I'm not a particularly like cultured, I think person, like intelligent, cultured person. I don't know like a lot of like great film or great music or great whatever. I just know these things that I like. And I do know Kurosawa, obviously, it's like a amazing director, like a renowned director. So I do know he's great. But I don't want to sound like I have any idea what I'm talking about. I just really like them. And which that was also before I even ever would have considered getting to work on Usagi. But so, because obviously Samurai Films was a big influence on Stan doing Usagi Yojimbo. But so I would copy Kurosawa films and just with like a Sharpie and a pencil, and just sort of do little storyboards basically, and just storyboard every minute or so, Seven Samurai or whatever. And then I got really like I think the biggest, again, with this sort of like shift, was then I hit the French stuff, and I got really deep into the comics. So Mobius, Jones Farr, Cyril Pedrosa is probably my all-time hero. in comics at least. He and then for animated, it would probably be Sylvain Chomet. Obviously Miyazaki, you know, they're very, very close. But I really like so Ciro Pedrosa did the book Three Shadows, and that this was years ago. And then that First Second put out, or at least they translated. And then he was a Disney animator, and then he left to do comics. And he's done tons since then. They're like up here. I have those books across the top is like the French comics I have in here. But like all the Mobius stuff is to the right, and then Louis Trondheim, Boulet, and then Ciro Pedrosa. But so there's a book up there called Portugal, which I have twice because like I hope I'm not putting people to sleep. I feel like I'm talking too much.
No, you're good, brother.
But so like I wanted to learn everything I could about making art. So I went to CTN, which at the time was like a big conference, and it was the only big that I knew of, at least at the time. It was like the big animation conference. So I just wanted to go see and get some opinions on like what I was drawing, it was amazing. Like I asked anyone who was like doing portfolio reviews just to be totally honest, and I got a lot of great advice at the show. Now Lightbox is sort of the big show to go to in Pasadena for animation. And that show is amazing. I go every chance I get. But anyways, at Lightbox now and at CTN at the time, there's a bookstore out there called Stewart and G. And they, which you probably have bought stuff from, they're really well known. But anyways, Stewart and G has a lot of import books and like rare books and really great stuff. And so I was drawn to their stuff, and I was digging through their like Blutch books and a bunch of their French comics. And then I stumbled across, when it had first come out, it was only in French at the time, which was the book Portugal from Ciro Pedrosa. So it was
only in French
at the time. Now you can get it in English.
Yeah.
I think most of it, MBM has put most of his books in, have translated most of his books to English. So you can get like nice. Golden and a bunch of the newer ones, Equinoxes and the others in English. But the biggest thing, I think, turning point for me in wanting to do comics was running across that copy of Portugal. And so like I didn't like have a lot of money. Basically, like I bought that book, and then like I had like a couple bucks left, so I got a like Del Taco for the day. And I just went back to the hotel room and I poured over this book, and it was like, that is like a highlight for me thinking about that year, because I had never experienced anything like that in a comic book, which was that it was totally in French, and I didn't need a word of it in English, because his drawing, the posture and the expression and the movement and then the lighting on top of that. So the color choices, which are not necessarily strictly lighting, he's even doing like creative things where he is using color, you know, like warmer colors or cooler colors. You know, the weather, like, you know, there's like a breakup scene and it's raining and they're with like a couples counselor, and the expression and the weight of the scene is so dense and heavy, you can read it without knowing any of the speech bubbles. So like I could read the speech bubbles and I knew exactly what was said the whole book, because it's just so good. It's kind of similar to what Garden State, which came out a long time ago, I guess at this point, but this idea, like someone who's sort of unhappy in one place and then they go back to their kind of home and they sort of find like joy there. So there's that's kind of what happens is he's in Paris, or he's in France rather, and he ends up going back to, was born in France, but he goes back to like where his family comes from in Portugal, and he sort of rediscovers himself is the idea, the basic idea. But it totally changed my life, because I didn't, and from then he was like also overlaying watercolor as well. Like he's doing a lot of interesting things that I had never considered before in terms of like, he does a lot of like utilizing texture, which is, I think, interesting. So like if you look at like Three Shadows or later work, his use of texture, like to create trees, like each tree will be a different just mark, circles or lines or whatever, and it works. It's so interesting visually, and it tells a story so well. And that was something I wanted to learn, was how can I be more playful and open to the kinds of marks that I'm making, and then how can I also how did that happen? Like how did Portugal read so clearly to me with no I don't know a word of French. So that became my obsession then. And then also at the same time discovering some of the stuff Studio Canal was doing. So like they did Ernest and Celestine around that time, which was I love those kids books. I've became really obsessed with watercolor and illustration for watercolor. And Gabrielle Vincent, who's very popular in Europe, but not as known here. But she did a book called she did a bunch of books, but she did a book called Ernest and Celestine, and it was watercolor, and it's amazing, and that really affected me. And then also the director Sylvain Chomet. So I that really opened up what cartooning could be to me, because I was trying to draw these maquettes, kind of the Marvel method way of the like if you read the old how to draw comics, the Marvel way or whatever, where you're drawing this like maquette, the blank person in a heroic style body, and then put the costume on it basically. And I had kind of adhered to that pretty strictly with these sort of maquettes of what a person is, even though I had like this childhood love and obsession with people like Milt Kahl and Art Babbitt and and other like the Nine Old Men Disney animators. I felt like I had kind of lost that idea because I had become sort of obsessed with like what it was supposed to look like, like a real person, like what a person's supposed to look like. And looking at Sylvain Chomet movies, particularly The Illusionist, which was just incredible. It's a fantastic animated film. And he did The Illusionist about Jacques Tati, and he did another one was Triplets of Belleville, which was before that. And it is super weird, like in terms of like structure, drawing structure. And like people are really long and tall. They have really long legs and short, squatty bodies. It cracks me up. He will draw like anytime there's like Americans, they're always like very grotesque. He did a Simpsons gag one time. Yeah, he did a Simpsons gag one time, couch gag, and it's like you should look up the Sylvain Chomet couch gag for the Simpsons, because it's very Sylvain Chomet, which is that it's like very well rendered. Like it's hard to look at. They're very hideous, but in a very beautiful, interesting way, and that's kind of what he does very well. So like Triplets of Belleville and The Illusionist, so the people and the environments, he does such a good job at embracing the like grotesqueness. Sounds like I'm saying it's ugly, but it's not ugly, it's beautiful. The uniqueness, I guess, is a better word for it. The differentness of every individual person. Some people are like tall and lanky or stretched out, and he's just fantastic, and I love his stuff so much. So that was like a big thing to me, and then that kind of reconnected me to the stuff that I really loved when I was a kid. So getting back to like Milt Kahl and the way he designed people, like the Butler and the Aristocats, or whatever. Like he had a very distinct way he designed people, and like a wonkiness, long skinny arms or big, he had the classic Milt Kahl hands, the big kind of hands, like in Sword in the Stone, like Merlin's big blocky hands. Stuff like that was really interesting to me, and so it really reconnected me to that kind of idea and obsession of trying to integrate that some way in the stuff I was doing, in the cartoon stuff I was doing.
Yeah, that's like some of my favorite animated Disney. Sword in the Stone, Robin Hood. Those are some iconic movies that I watched over and over and over on my VHS.
Oh yeah, I loved it, man. We had those big clunky clamshell things, I loved it.
So let's talk about Kodi. So where did the idea for Katya and Kodi originally come from?
Well, to be honest, the idea in general came from what I just said, basically, all that stuff. So the idea of Kodi, in the book, it's about this, the story, I guess I would say was, I never really like thought of it as a bear specifically, even though that's the main character. To me, so I guess just because people probably haven't heard of it, it's about a little girl who has trouble making friends, and she ends up finding this injured bear who she connects with, and she nurses him back to health. They become best friends, but she has to go home to Seattle. And then the book Kodi is about this bear's like long adventure to try to find her again. So it goes on this sort of quest to find her. So that, to me, the idea came from, in general, came from the story I just told, which was my love and obsession with these things, old Disney cartoons, drawing and wanting to draw, and then having that sort of squashed in me in a sense, like, not to, I don't think nobody had ill intent. That sounds like I'm being like a victim about it, but it's not. Like, people just told me because, I mean, I was drawing stick figures, they were trying to do me a favor in an honest way and say, hey man, sometimes you have to hang it up, So the idea is having something that you love and then losing that thing, and then that thing's sort of slow journey to find you again. So it was sort of what I had thought was my sort of journey of loving art and then kind of giving up and letting it go, and then it's sort of the quest of it sort of finding its way back into my life.
Oh wow.
But the concept initially came from 3 different ideas, because I could not come up with a graphic novel idea, even though that was the dream. So I had an idea about a down and out fisherman who was trying to restart his life. I had a children's book idea, like a picture book idea, that was going to be very silly, about a bear trying to fit in, which was about, it was going to be about a bear that like washes up in a city and can't, like, tries to wait tables and drops everything, or tries to do these different things to try to be something that it's not. Obviously, it sort of was the general idea, but it fails.
That's very cool. I like
the
that.
third idea was about a like an adolescent struggling to make friends, not having friends. And then each of those were like little 20-page stories, but I ended up just putting them together, and it became, the adolescent became more of a kid. She's like 11. And then, she befriends the bear. Those things still sort of happen in a sense, just not quite as silly as I had intended it initially to be. And they meet the fisherman. The fisherman has a big role in it, and how he sort of intertwines in their life. So that was sort of the genesis of the idea. And then at the time I had pitched it to everybody, and everybody said no at the time. I was writing checks, intentionally, that I didn't have the creative money in the bank for, because I really wanted to do this big graphic novel. Well, big, it's relative. It's 180 pages, I think, or 176 pages. But I wanted to do this watercolor graphic novel, and I hadn't done one yet. So everybody was like, but that was a lot of the work I ended up actually doing that have led to context, like the domino trickling down came from all that rejection too. So that's something that, like, on the odd occasion that I do end up talking to young artists to try to advise them, is just to embrace rejection, because a lot of that initial people telling me no became, well, we don't want this, but at the time they were like, we need stories for Storyteller, Jim Henson Storyteller, and then Fraggle Rock, and it's sort of that ended up becoming a relationship to Jim Henson, and then Boom and IDW through that stuff. So which all came from just years of everybody saying no at the time.
That's
So
great.
that's part of it. But I don't, it's always going to happen. I don't think that's a unique thing, especially for someone like me who comes from such little like skill at it. It's just part of it,
Yeah. So when you created Kodi as like a character, did you already have like personality figured out immediately, or were you feeling it out as you created the character?
The character, um, I had initial ideas for the way I wanted the characters to be. I guess a lot of that sort of just evolved over time as I was
Mm,
trying to piece together the story, which
okay.
was the harder part for me. Um, I tend to, probably to a fault, tend to think of character kind of second, which I don't love about myself. It's just something that the way my brain works. I tend to think an environment first and then sort of putting people in the picture, basically. So,
Yeah.
and I tend to, if you, writing sounds like a lofty word for what I do, but like the process for me of trying to make pictures, for lack of a better phrase, is a lot of just drawing pictures. So I'll see pictures in my head very clearly. I've always had that to a fault. When I was a kid, I've always had a hard time writing letters, but I could see pictures really well and draw pictures of it. So I've understood things visually way faster than I can trying to read or write. Especially when it comes to math, which has always been totally alien to me. Um, so the process of writing, if you want to call it that, to me is a lot of like imagining pictures and then basically roughing storyboards. I tend to think in storyboards. I tend to, like, if I could write grocery lists as just storyboards or pictures, I could see it way better than trying to write letters. I still have a hard time writing letters. And if I had to do like a story, like a script, like if a publisher, every publisher I've worked with has been very gracious with, like, I usually will turn in storyboards basically instead of instead of a script, like opening, whatever, New York, Manhattan, whatever, this kind of stuff. I can't even do it now, but I can draw it.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
So like if I sat like to write a book or a story or even a page, if I just open a Word document and try to start typing, I freeze. I can't do anything in that regard. And even free writing tends to be, to me, because I'll do quite a bit of, especially if I'm trying to come up with ideas. Usually like when you're working with a publisher, a lot of times you want to have like 2 or 3 ideas. So like if you're working on a story for something, whatever character, usually they like to have a couple ideas, or you're doing a cover, they like to have a couple different ideas and then they pick a direction. So if I'm in that process, I'll try to free write, but usually it's like just literally squiggles on a page because it's more about the process of putting the
Getting it
pen to
out.
paper than it is, the actual like, you know, coming up with an idea for me. Um, So, but for me, it helps to storyboard ideas. So I tend to see pictures and I don't have any context for why. So it'll be, um, we'll see scenes and then I try to sketch those scenes. And it is the process of front loading tons and tons of work of just drawing scenes and pictures and stuff that then it's almost like, I don't know, for lack of a better, metaphor, I don't know, like I said, I'm not very intelligent, but so it's not a great metaphor, but like kind of like pizza dough, I guess. It's like you have to like front load a lot of the work and put it in the bowl, and then it has to sort of sit on the shelf and kind of
Rise.
grow on
Yeah, I
its
get what you mean.
own. And then you're getting like walking the dog or something, and then you'll go, oh wait, that's why they did this, because the thing. And then I'll usually go try to storyboard that. So I usually think in like scratch pad storyboards. So I will storyboard little scenes and pictures and things, and then try the best I can to kind of quilt those things together, like stitch those things together. So the actual process, I guess, for working on Kodi at the time, and it's become more refined now because I've spent a lot of time just trying to study writing because I just came in it from zero education in this stuff. So and like I said, I've always struggled with letters. So like I didn't read a lot of books growing up because I just had a hard time reading, and so I just wouldn't read. And then so I just like I over the years now I've tried to refine the process by like studying Joseph Campbell, or like studying storytelling books and things that will give you insights in terms of like structure and how you want to like have an arc, or you know like Eastern versus Western story arcs, whether it's an arc or like a linear line, if you're trying to like build to something, or if you're trying to have a more of a like a nebulous dream state writing, like going back to Ghibli, like the Boy and the Heron, where it's a little bit more like a dream state than a satisfying conclusion. So like I've spent a lot of time studying that stuff for the newer stuff that I'm working on. But a lot of the earlier stuff, I didn't know what I was doing, and I just wanted to do something. So it was just a lot of just banging my head on the wall basically, and just doing storyboards until I did enough of them that they could overlap and go, okay, well then this is why they're here. So a lot of like coming up with Kodi was just tons and tons of little paintings and drawings, and then trying to piece together why. So a lot of times it'll just be random pictures that I don't really have context for. And then like working on Usagi has been nice because I was working with Zach Rosenberg, and he and I have almost like developed a special language between the two of us, because he can read the way I'm thinking very clean and clearly, and I don't have to explain anything. So I can scratch off like a couple pages of just boarded environments or scenes, and then he can go, okay, well, this is why they're here, or they need to go, that something has to happen between these, and then he'll help me stitch it together.
Oh, okay, cool.
So that helped a lot working on that, because otherwise I just am out in the water with one paddle just swinging. So that's kind of the story of my career. It's just one paddle in a rowboat swinging as hard as I can. Despite being told I should stop a long time ago. Yeah, so for Kodi, a lot of the personality stuff evolved from that process of environments and emotions that would be sensed or feeled in a scene, and then stitching those things together. So I think probably someone who's better at like writing, or someone who is like works on character stuff specifically, or like can really delve into that, is very good at like developing rich histories and backgrounds, which I try to do to a certain extent, so that I can have some informed decisions in terms of what the character does or says. But for the most part, for me, it is like a lot of doodling environments and then trying to quilt those things together.
Yeah, I mean, with your watercolor work, it gives Kodi like a very distinctive atmosphere. Did your story dictate the artistic style, or did the style help shape the story?
That's a good question. I mean, I think a lot of the decisions that were made in terms of the structure that the characters were drawn came from that I after I had decided that the protagonist, the main character, is this girl Katja. I spent a lot of time doing doodles and sketches of trying to think about what the world looks like to someone that age. So a lot of like the design ideation came from thinking about how like the world feels when you are like between 9 and 11 years old or whatever. So everything feels very big, or at least that's my memory of it. So like I remember like people like you always feel like grown men, like my father's forearms always felt like huge when I was a kid, or like his hands felt huge. And so like the characters, a lot of the characters are based on people who I knew or vaguely knew, at least in visual memory, and then the kind of sense of how they would be. So if it was someone who was sort of rotund in general, I would make them really big. like the grandmother character, who I also wanted to appear friendly and like a good character and not like a evil, you know, character. I wanted her to
Yeah, I get
immediately
it.
read as both funny and kind of cute and a sweet character immediately. So she's built on a lot of circles instead of triangles. And then on top of that, she's ridiculously rotund. She's very round and she has very skinny, small legs, kind of like a chicken. So that was sort of the idea there, was like trying to that a lot of that decision making came from shape design in old Disney, and then also Sylvain Chomet's, being influenced by Sylvain Chomet's Triplets of Belleville characters. Like if you look at Triplets of Belleville, it's really everything is like almost like a funhouse mirror. Like if the character has a big nose, it's like bigger than their head, or like it has a lot of in the movie Triplets of Belleville, a lot of it has to do with cycling and in I guess in France. And so but the cyclists, they look kind of like horses. So like he he draws them in like a fisheye, so they have
Mm.
this almost like horse-like
Yeah,
separation
it's
of
like,
their eyes. Yeah, elongated
yeah.
noses.
Yeah.
And their cyclist's body are basically like a head and like a pencil of a neck, and then like a little tiny waist, and then giant quadriceps and calves. So like their bodies are like this like insane looking
Yeah, like a
structure, but
distorted
super
exaggeration.
distorted exaggeration of cyclists.
Yeah.
Because their their quadriceps are so huge, and so it's and that story is about a cyclist who gets kidnapped by this sort of mysterious organization and taken to America, and his I guess mother, maybe grandmother, I forget, but she's this also really cute little well-designed little lady, and she goes on this quest to try to find him again. And in that quest, she ends up meeting these three old women who were like used to be kind of vaudeville acts, and now they're like outcasts in society. They're these like really, but they're all based on he like, so like the Triplets of Belleville, the older women, he based on like NBA players who were very popular at the time. So their body structure is like really tall, like, and they have really long, lanky arms. Their posture and structure and the way they move it's a really interesting kind of like decision to make, because they have a very specific look to them, and they're all very unique and interesting. And the whole thing is just that they're crazy and odd, and a lot of the characters in that movie are crazy and odd, and it's really interesting. So I loved that movie, and I wanted to figure out how to integrate that somehow in the pictures I was drawing. Like, how can you be playful with that idea to a point that it's like pushing what can look feasibly real, but also still reads very clear and tells a story really well.
Yeah, I mean, you said it perfectly when you were trying to say like depict immediately how you wanted the grandma to come off as. So you had all these round, no jagged edges, no sharp edges. So it comes in as soft and welcoming, not scary.
Yeah,
It's
I spent a lot of time thinking about shape design. I still do a lot, like the visual storytelling in the shapes that you build characters out of, whether they're built with primarily circles or triangles, or the juxtaposition of two shapes against one another. So like in the first Kodi, Katya is coming from a place where she's not doing well. So I wanted her to be, her character is the juxtaposition of a circle and a triangle. So whenever she is in frame, she's always either wearing this jacket that is fanned out in a way that constantly makes it sort of like a big triangle. But her structure is always built on a circle juxtaposed to a triangle, because I wanted to have it be sort of two shapes that don't necessarily work together very well, because I wanted it to sort of get the sense of something not being not going well at the time in the beginning of the story. So yeah, or she's kneeling or sitting in a way that her structure is usually in panel, a circle and a triangle next to one another.
Yeah,
And then
it's cool.
Kodi
I like that.
is all circles. So the bear is also, because it's a bear, I obviously didn't want it to be aggressive seeming. So it's built entirely on circles. So every aspect of the bear is intertwining circles or overlapping circles in some way. The structure, and then like the head, and then within the head, the smaller subset structures of like bear skull anatomy are rounded off basically, because I wanted him to be like friendly looking and read as like a kid's book character and not like an aggressive, potentially like what a real bear would be, I guess.
When my daughter was younger, we used to watch, like Nickelodeon, and they had this one segment where they specifically, it was like for the parents. They were like specifically talking about how they would, I think it was for Yo Gabba Gabba, or to be honest with you. And they were like
That's
talking
funny.
about how they design the suits and the characters, and they stay away from, specific lines or rounds. Like they went into this whole like thing about the psychology of it, to where you
Yeah.
automatically feel a certain emotion when you see a specific combination of shapes and everything. So I was like, oh, that's wild. And then I don't know if you have ever seen it, but there was a cartoon called Primal by the guy who did Samurai Jack. Was it
Oh, I did see that. Yeah.
Gennady
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Tarkovsky's? Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
When people are like, oh, like, how do you, what would like a comic be? How would you feel emotion pushed through a show or cartoon? I'm like, you got to see Primal.
Yeah.
I'm an
It's
adult.
intense.
And there was like moments where I was like gonna cry through watching that cartoon, because you like you get pulled into these characters, and not a single word is ever said or written.
Yeah.
Never. And you're like, so like I guess even when going to like the silver screen, when you get to like real movies, and you're like, you watch a scene and like no words are being said, and you just feel the emotion. So like to be able to put that into comic or cartoon, it's the same medium almost, where it's like you can still, that emotion, that connection is still there. It's going to resonate no matter what medium you're using or way you're putting it through. So I think it's great. And for Kodi, like, when did you realize there was another story inside you for a sequel?
Well, I had kind of had the, because these things take years, to be honest. So
Yeah.
I had been drawing and working on it for a long time. And I have had kind of I had two basically ways I thought it could go. If we did more, and then they approached me and they wanted to do another one. And so I just ended up picking one of those ideas. The second one is more about the second one. So like in the first one, it's all about the idea of the art spirit kind of coming back into your life, later, and finding that sort of love and joy again. And then the second book is about what then kind of comes with that, which is the people who want to either exploit that or tell you what to do with that, or what you're supposed to do with that, or supposed to be in that world. And then what do you do if these things aren't working in your life? So the bear, I mean, the first one's been out a while, so he finds the girl in the city, and where the second one picks up, they're living in the city now, but it's not, he's a bear, so it's not really working. He's like, people in the city don't like having a bear in the city. She is struggling to keep up with schoolwork and stuff, and so she's not doing her schoolwork very well. She's not keeping up at school. And she's still kind of struggling socially, and people are now have this big bear to blame as the problem. And so a villain is sort of introduced, which is this zookeeper that wants to take Kodi away from her. So then
Oh
it
no.
becomes a quest of trying to find her place and the bear's place in the world, and not getting kidnapped by this zookeeper.
Oh man, heavy. It's gonna be a heavy one, huh?
Yeah. So that's the idea of that one. So it's called this. The title of it is A Place to Call Home. So it's the idea is it's trying to figure out where they belong now, because they, and the idea that sometimes you can have the thing that you want, but it may not work for your life, or it may not be a healthy situation.
Yes.
So that kind of
wow, that's not just a kid's book. That's a book we could all read, right? I mean,
thing.
what does home
Hopefully.
mean? It's like, what does home mean
Mhm.
to all these characters? Or what does home mean to any of us, really?
Exactly.
Yeah. Wow.
That's
Deep,
kind of the
man.
hope
That's
for the
great.
idea.
Well, that comes out September 1st?
So that book comes out September 1st. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Make sure to, and where can everyone get that?
I think pretty much anywhere, you can pre-order it now.
Okay.
Online. And of course, like, Barnes & Noble or Amazon or Target or whatever, there's like things that come off the top shelf or the Penguin Random House website or whatever. So there's like a blanket of places you can. I think one of them is, I've been told it's books, or someone maybe knows in the comments. One of them is more focused on indie bookstores. It's like books.com, or it's maybe not books.com. It's one of them. I forget it. I should know, but it's more focused on indie bookshops, which would be probably ideal.
Okay.
But anyways, you can pre-order it now, or otherwise it'll be, hopefully most anywhere comics are sold, and books, graphic novels. Yeah, I don't know if anybody's going to SPX, but the sort of release event for me, at least, is going to be SPX this year. So that's the comic show in Bethesda, Maryland. Do you ever go to that one, or are you?
No, I've never heard of that.
You're on the East Coast, right?
I am on the East Coast. Bethesda. That's pretty cool. In Maryland?
Yeah. So where are you at?
I'm in Jersey.
Oh, okay, cool. Oh, awesome. Zach is
Yeah.
out in that area, Jersey.
Yeah. I'm I work in the city but live in Jersey, so I'm a commuter.
Oh, very cool. Oh, that's
Yeah.
So Zach Rosenberg, the co-writer and the on Usagi with me, is he works in the city. He works in Manhattan. He commutes in. That's cool. Yeah, I'm in Pittsburgh, so I'm on the other end of.
Oh, okay. You're west southwest.
Yeah,
for me.
Yeah,
but you're west PA, right?
Yeah, right on the bottom corner.
Wow. Okay.
It's a funny. We like Pittsburgh a lot. We've been here a couple of years now. So.
Oh, cool. Pennsylvania is very nice.
Yeah, it's super pretty. So we're not too far from like the Frank Lloyd Wright buildings and stuff. There's a lot of really pretty stuff. So we used to live in Virginia, and you could get to the beach faster though. So you can get to the beach faster than us. That Rehoboth stuff or area or whatever, you could get out that way. So that's nice. But yeah, anyways, Bethesda, which isn't crazy far. I don't know if you ever end up going to that one. It's less pop culture focused than I think, like Heroes Con or Baltimore or whatever Comic-Con would be. It's more indie focused. So there's but it's a great show. I really love SPX. I've been doing that show since I started. The first show I went to was, well, other than like the local one, I was in Richmond, Virginia at the time when I started, and there was like a local one that was sort of in like a hotel or whatever. It was like a really small one.
Yeah, those are usually cool.
I guess that was the first one. I was going to say the first one I went to, but the first like bigger show I went to before I started drawing was Heroes Con in Charlotte, North Carolina. So that show has a special place in my heart, because I went like before I started drawing, and I bugged a bunch of artists who then later became really good friends and advised me as I was starting out. Like I always like shout out Andy Runton, because I got to know him. He does Owly, and he I met him when I was like just starting out, and I would ask him questions, really basic questions, like how do you get the pictures in the panel kind of questions. And and he helped me out a lot when I was starting out with really redundant questions. And I love his work. Amazing. But yeah, so SPX is Bethesda, Maryland is I think middle of September, and that's when that's where Kodi 2 will be sort of released at. But I think the official release date is September 1st. So
well, that's cool. With anyone in the area, try to make it to SPX and get it signed at the booth for you. You're gonna be there, right? So that'd be cool.
Yeah, I'll have. I'm gonna have my publisher has a booth, so I'll probably be there for the book itself, and then I'm gonna have like posters for it that I'll draw on for people or whatever if they want it, and then I'm gonna have my own booth next to the publisher with like the original pages if people want to flip through the paintings and pages and stuff. So for that and Usagi, and whatever else, the other projects I'm working on right now. So I have a couple other projects, the Beneath the Trees, and I'm working on Twilight Zone right now. So
Twilight Zone,
so that should be fun.
I've heard very good things about Beneath the Trees, so I have to check that out. Yeah.
The thing I love the most about it is the creator, Patrick. He's just like, he's such like because I met him at San Diego Comic-Con, and I'm sure everybody probably already knows that, but it's about a serial killer, and it's a very violent book. It's a juxtaposition kind of something like Dexter. I don't want to compare it to Dexter directly, but it's like something like, it's like a serial killer type crime drama, but in a sort of Berenstain Bears type children's illustration. Not quite children's illustration. It also has a very sort of European, and I've never talked to him directly about it. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if he also had the similar kind of like trajectory where he sort of like got sucked into European comics, like Italian and French comics, like I did. But it has a kind of a European sort of sensibility, or at least color palette and choice. It's also watercolor, and he's amazing. But I got to meet him, and they were like at IDW. They were like, "Oh, Patrick's around. You should meet him." And I was like, "Man, what is this guy going to be like?" Because I had only seen the book, and it's it's violent or whatever, and it's like, I don't. Because I do Kodi, and it's like,
I was just gonna say, you go from Kodi to
it makes like Kodi kind of makes like Pixar look like a slasher film or whatever. It's like very kid friendly, at least. And then anyway, so I met Patrick. He makes Mr. Rogers look like a jerk. He's the most genuine, kind-hearted person. He's so nice and friendly and fun to talk to. So he's the best. So
that's awesome.
He's one to meet if you get a chance to get a book and get it signed. So they're doing a Halloween special, like I was saying, and he's doing the through line. So they've got people doing the stories, and then he's doing the through line for the story.
Cool.
So that's coming out, I'm guessing, obviously around Halloween, as far as I know. So cool. It's I forget everybody else who's in it. I know Dave Watcher's in it, who's amazing. He's he's a local hero here. He's a Pittsburgh artist, and he's very, very good. And a bunch of other people too. So it sounds really cool. The people I've heard who are on it. So
I'm gonna make sure to check that out.
And then I'm working on a Usagi sword too. So or Kaitō,
another one.
So so we're doing it was announced at San Diego Comic-Con. They're doing a winter special. So
cool.
There's the Halloween special for Beneath the Trees, and then we're doing a Usagi like a winter special. I think it comes out in January.
Okay. Oh wow. Okay. Yeah, I was not caught up on that. Oh man, because Kaitō is what, five issues, right?
Yes.
Okay. So this is how many is this going to be? Do you know yet?
This is just one. This is just a one-off. Cool. And then there's going to be like a little bit of a very short lull, and then they've got 2 new projects coming out. So Stan is doing the regular Yojimbo series, picks back up, so that's coming next year, and then very cool. They're starting a new last Yojimbo series, which is Tom Waltz and Ben Bishop, who did Last Ronin, are doing they're currently working on a last Yojimbo, is the title of it. So it
What?
looks, the art that I've seen from Ben looks amazing. He's I mean,
Like
you know,
set in the last Ronin few
no, I
shit,
think this
basically?
is separate.
Oh,
This is
I was gonna
set
say,
in
oh my god, I'm hungry for that.
it's well, yeah, who knows, maybe there'll be a tie-in. I don't know. I don't have
Yeah,
any, I'm not high
that'd be
enough on the rung. I'm
crazy.
just a fry cook, you know, with a paintbrush. So I don't have a lot of say in like what gets done. But
Yeah.
I would love to do, I was talking to the Turtles people at Heroes Con about wanting to do some sort of crossover with the 84, because you know 84 was not just the year. So the whole genesis of the 84, so the people who probably haven't heard of it, I did a series for Usagi Yojimbo set in 1984, and I illustrated it, and so I painted it and I co-wrote it, and the main writer is Zach Rosenberg, and the idea came about because we were it was around the time that they were doing all the celebration for the 40-year anniversary for, this is so 2024, so they were doing all this stuff to celebrate Usagi and TMNT being 40 years old at the time. And I was doing plein air paintings at the time, like doing these little events, like where you go and paint in cities. And I was doing a plein air painting event, and I had a car that I thought was really cool. It was just this funny looking boxy car that I really liked. So I did a little painting of it and I saved it. And then I found out it was, I Googled it because I was curious what it was. And it was a 1984 Rabbit, a Volkswagen Rabbit. So I was like, you know, I kept hearing about like the 40-year anniversary. And so I was like, 1984 Rabbit's a funny, you know, it would be funny if like Usagi was in 1984, the year that it was born, and then he was driving around in this, you know, like a little blue rabbit or whatever. And so I did some doodles of it, just a couple like versions of the characters from the original series, but in like 80s like fashion or whatever. It was the stuff that I remember from 80s fashion, which is, I've mentioned this on other shows. Like I was born in 85, so I wasn't terribly connected to the 80s.
Okay.
In as
84.
much as there you go. I remember the 80s through like my dad, like the fashion he wore, which is like mostly like really high shorts and high socks and like big white shoes, and you know, like a polo or whatever. And you know, I remember like members only jacket. So like I drew a bunch of iterations of those characters in like high-waisted jeans or whatever, like windbreaker style jackets or members only jackets, which is what we ended up going with. And I sent them, driving the car, like different cars. So I sent that to Zach, just because Zach and I have always had a relationship where if we're working on a project, we'll just send ideas back and forth to each other. That was the start of that, came with Kodi actually, because we were, at the time we had got to know each other very loosely through friends at shows. And he asked me what I was working on. I told him I was working on Kodi, and he was like, I'd love to hear about it. So I called him and we talked on the phone for maybe 6 hours. And I just told him, and he was like, well, have you thought of this, or have you tried this, and I was like, no, I hadn't. And I was like, so it's like going back. And so we've since then we've had this connection where we have a lot of the same influences, and then a kind of language when it comes to you know, we both know what the other one means when we're talking about a story idea. So we are always pitching ideas. So I just sent it to him just because I thought would be funny. And so I sent it to him, and he was like, oh, we have to do like a story with this. And I put it where the rest of my drawings usually go, just in the trash can. So I had literally chucked it all. I was like, no, because I had done some covers for Stan Sakai and for Usagi Yojimbo, but like we would talk about watercolor, but we didn't know each other that well. Basically, again, like the sort of trickle down of that, like, again, that rejection eventually led to me doing Kodi when I was given a chance. And then I got to know Stan because Kodi was nominated for a Rueben at the same time as Usagi was. And so Stan was just curious. So he looked it up, what it was. And then he reached out to me, and we started talking mostly about watercolor. It's like
Cool.
we didn't even really talk about comics. We were talking about watercolor, like what brands do
Yeah.
you use, or like what's a good brush or whatever. Just sort of talking watercolor, and not a whole lot about comics in general. So the idea of me just being like, hey, I did these little drawings or whatever was like totally beyond. Like I was like, they're never gonna talk to me again. They're gonna be like, that's very cute, and then like delete me from the Rolodex or whatever. So, because I had done covers for them, which I loved doing, it was always like one of my favorites. And but the idea that we would actually do like a story was entirely Zach's. He literally dug the drawings out of the trash can like maybe 15 times until I finally agreed to like, okay, well, we'll try to come up with at least an idea, because he was like, just let me come up with an idea before you throw it all away. And I still said no for months. It was like 3 or 4 months of me saying no. I was too embarrassed to show Stan any of it. So Zach like was like, just give me an hour, and he came back to me in an hour, and I was like, okay, actually I like this. So initially he had like a little bit more of a darker story, and then I told him that I felt a little bit like we should do something that was a little more connected to the things that we were obsessed with when we were kids. So
Cool.
Totoro, Kiki's Delivery Service, early Ghibli, and Kurosawa films, non-samurai Kurosawa films. So, and like other Japanese films from the 80s, like Tampopo and some others. And then he was like, yeah, sure. And then he came right back in like a minute or two and was like, how about this? And I was like, I actually really like this. And then we, I did some more. I was doing concept paintings and stuff because I was still too embarrassed. We got all that way for me to then get cold feet and say, no, I'm not going to do it. So, but eventually he was like, we should at least just, if we just share it, that all they can do is say not now or maybe sometime. So we ended up sharing it. It was kind of funny. It was like one of those weird kismet things where Stan had actually had this idea of opening up to having new people doing like offshoots that he was going to call like Shadow Warriors or something like that. And so he had already kind of had the idea of having like descendants who sort of branched off from the original series. And then and then the editor Justin, it was just weird timing because Justin had been like, they had just had a meeting like not long ago where Justin was telling them we should do something that we should have one of them be like a modern era, somewhere like in the modern era. So like, with whatever that looks like. And they didn't have at the time, they didn't have an idea specifically for it. Like Stan has a bunch of ideas already that he'd like to do. There's like a World War II era one, and like a San Francisco, like a detective kind of, like he has a bunch of these offshoot ideas, but they hadn't had one that was like a modern era specifically. And then we just popped up in the inbox with a bunch of paintings and doodles and Zach's outline for the idea of what it could be. So it just worked out. It was like just the timing worked out great. So
it sounds like perfect timing.
Yeah, it was great. And we I mean, it was such a joy. It was like one of those things where like, you're hesitant. I've had some bummer I'm not gonna like say specific people, but I've had some like getting to meet your hero moments, and you're like, oh man, I wish I did not do that. Now this is like permanently like colored the way I look at this whatever character or story or something that meant so much to you. And this was the opposite of that. I mean, like they immediately felt like family, and like Stan works a lot with his actual family, so like Julie and then and Julie's kids, and they're all very involved in the decision making and stuff, and they're just I mean, they're all so wonderful. They're everything you'd think they would be when you see them talking, because they seem so genuine and kind, and then you meet them and you're like, oh, thank goodness they're real. They're like legitimately genuine, kind people, and just a joy to talk to and be around. So the whole thing has been so great. Like on the people side of things. So the people we've met at Dark Horse have all been so kind, and then even now going forward, because I'm working on a book right now for Top Shelf, another book for Top Shelf, which is not related to Kodi, and it's very early. I'm drawing it now, so when I'm painting that one, I'm thinking about maybe releasing part of it online. I haven't totally figured out what I want to do with it, but it would, because it's so new and different, I was thinking I might maybe go back to doing some kind of like a web comic release where like I release a page a week or something once I'm painting them. But I owe them that book, so I have to do that book before we can do anything else. But we have I mean, like Zach and I, during that lull, like I was saying, that like 7 months where things were being sort of ironed out in terms of like what this would look like, how many issues, how many pages each issue, well, that kind of thing was being figured out. And I was just drawing Usagi hundreds of times, thousands of times. Zach and I were we would have meetings. We were so excited about the project. We had one literally scheduled meeting every Tuesday. And then we would be so excited with other new ideas. We had too many ideas at the time, so we would end up doing like a second or third meeting where we'd talk on the phone. Well, there were a couple that we literally talked until like sunrise. We like talked until like, I don't know, 5 in the morning or 5:30 in the morning about like, oh, they could do this and then they do this and then this, like just so excited about it. So like we've mapped out like I think we in the gray, I don't know how many ideas because we haven't threaded them all, but like in terms of like actually outlined and pieced together, we have about 20 issues total more of what we have ideas for. So,
oh wow.
So we're willing. I mean, they're willing. They're happy to do it. I mean, they would love to keep going now, which I wish I could, but I've promised a book already to Top Shelf, and I do want to do it. So I'm excited about getting that book. And so it'll sort of have its own sort of life, and I don't know where that one will go, if I end up doing sequels to it or not, but there are more ideas for future ones. So we did, if people don't know, we did Usagi Kaitō 84, and it was a 5-issue miniseries, and so we have ideas for a future another miniseries for it, if that's what they want, or if they want to do whatever they want to do. But right now, the main docket, I think, for them is going to be Stan's new story, Honor the Arrow, and then Last Yojimbo, which is going to be a 10-part story. So that one will be a little bit longer and more involved, I think. But I haven't got to see or hear a whole lot about it. I've seen the art that Ben's working on. So I'm just getting to know Ben. I didn't know Ben Bishop at all. Also another one who it's like, I texted Justin, our editor, and was like, man, I hope they're nice, because they're, Last Ronin did really well. So I was like, oh man, I hope he's not like really arrogant or something.
Yeah.
But he's not. He's totally down to earth. He's a great guy. We got to meet him at San Diego also. Him and Tom are amazing. They're great guys. So, and I've been very fortunate to get to chat with them and get to see the stuff and a little bit of the stuff they're working on. But I haven't even seen a whole lot of what they've got in terms of layouts and plans and stuff. But I know there's a lot in the works though, coming down the line. So.
Oh, that's exciting. I love The Last Ronin was a great story. I love that.
Oh yeah. I mean,
yeah, it was dope. And Usagi Yojimbo is one of my favorite characters. Stan Sakai is a legend in my book. You mentioned 2024. They were doing a bunch of stuff for the 40th anniversary. And I bought cards from Stan at New York Comic Con. He did like cards for Usagi and all these awesome characters and everything. And I actually made a video. It's on my YouTube somewhere. I opened those with my son, and we were like looking at them and everything. And that was so cool. I was like, I got to get like something from Stan at some point, like some kind of like art or something. But I'd love to interview him, like talk to him, because Usagi's been such a dope character growing up. I mean, I was introduced to him via Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Me too. Me too. I mean, that's part of why I had the action figure. It was at the time it was a TMNT action figure.
Yes.
I didn't know at the time because I had mentioned earlier, I wasn't really reading a lot of comics at the time, and certainly not ones like the ones I would see were the ones that would be like incidentally on the bookshelf rack at either the
Yes.
grocery store or Books a Million or something. So it'd be like Spider-Man and maybe Spawn, or something. But
Hmm.
it wasn't a lot of options like it would be if you went to a comic shop. Um, but but my parents just weren't very involved in that world, so like it didn't really occur to them that stuff was like out there.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
And so I didn't go a lot to comic stuff when I was a kid, but I did love, and also like my main fixation was animation, so I didn't know a lot about uh Usagi Yojimbo as a book series at all till way later when I was getting it. Like when I was 26 and I got in, then finally was like, okay, well, I do want to read these things, and I got into comics. Then it became like a history kind of like thing of like picking an artist or picking a thing and then obsessively finding all their old stuff, like Mazzucchelli, like
Mm.
reading Batman Year One or whatever, and then like going and trying to find everything he's ever drawn ever, and like look at it or study it or read it or whatever, and just picking a different person each time, and then of course you inevitably run across Stan stuff. But so that to me was when I really got into like actually reading it through. Was not till later. But when I was a kid, it was the Saturday morning cartoons, the TMNT stuff, and then just the episode, whatever that was, 89 or whatever it was that came out with where he pops into the future, was just like I was just like, what is this character? I have to,
Yeah.
I have to know more about this. And then every
Usagi in space.
yeah. And then and I had the back when every action figure looked like He-Man or whatever. And I had that one. It was a TMNT action figure though,
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
Usagi that I used to carry around. I had that one and the space one too. There was like a space Usagi one that was like
Yeah. He had the little dino.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I had that.
Uh,
I actually have the unopened. I have the NECA remake of that, the black and
awesome.
white one.
Yeah. Oh, I know exactly what you're
Yeah.
talking about.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Big
I have
fan.
a
Big
couple
fan.
of those. I have Stan's turtles, of course, and I've gotten the ones from Usagi over the years from NECA.
Oh, the cool looking ones. Oh, that's cool. That's
Yeah,
really cool.
they're
I
awesome.
like those. That's a deep cut. I like them because they look completely different.
Yeah.
I like those a lot. Well, you're a collector yourself. I mean, you just said you're into big animation. Do you have any animation cells or anything like that?
I do.
Cool.
I that if I had, I guess if I collected anything, that would sort of be it. I mean, I have like a couple things that I like, but I've never been totally huge. Well, I guess anymore now, graphic novels is sort of the main thing. Um, and that I've collected over the years. But anymore now, yeah, I have some. I wouldn't say it's a full collection because I don't have that many because they're so expensive. But I have some animation cells that I've gotten from Ghibli that are. If I could collect more, I would collect a lot more of them.
Word.
But I have one from Porco Rosso and Kiki's Delivery Service.
Oh,
That
that's
I
awesome.
that I really love. And then I have a lot of the art that I have, other than I have some art. Well, it's behind here, but I have some covers from Stan. So I have a couple covers of his, and then drawings that we've traded drawings over the years or written. Some of them are just a letter that he drew on the back of, and I saved it. One thing
That's awesome.
have that I have framed behind my desk is a painting that he and I did together, which I have the poster of, I think.
Is it the water reflection one?
Yeah,
Dude, that's one of my favorite pieces. I'm not even lying.
I would grab it, but it's framed on the wall behind
No, the
this.
poster's fine.
I would have to. I would probably knock everything down. But this is the poster.
Yeah, that's like literally one of my favorite pieces.
They
Let me make you bigger.
they did such a cool thing with it. Actually, I guess it would be this side up technically. Stand side goes up.
So crazy, man. I love that piece.
But
Oh, this is Dino.
It's in like a thing, so it's probably so Yeah, I have the original of this. This was I've had a lot of people reach out asking if they could buy it, which I don't. I'm never going to sell it because it was just the experience of getting to do it was so fun. So Stan sent me the drawing of this side,
Hold on.
and then
Okay.
I drew my side, and then I got to paint the whole thing, which was so nerve-wracking, to be honest, because I was like I was so terrified because if I messed it up, I couldn't just like
Wow.
email him and be like, hey, can you draw another one?
Can you do it
So,
again?
yes. So I was super nervous about that, but luckily it came through. That was for San Diego Comic-Con. They did like a special poster. So that I want to keep forever. I definitely would not. But I also have collected animation art that I like, which is typically environments. There are some artists who are like either background painters or like concept artists, rather, is the word I was looking for. So like Nathan Fowkes is a painter that I really like. Not to be confused with Nathan Fox, who's also a super genuine great guy, comics artist. Nathan Fowkes is a concept artist in animation, so he did like a lot of like DreamWorks stuff, like Rhea and Blue Sky, and a bunch of, I mean, he's done everything, Disney, all of it. And but he does a lot of concept paintings, so I have a lot of his, like, he does concept paintings and then he does a lot of just watercolor paintings in between to study. And I have like 9 of his watercolor paintings now that I've collected over the years. And then so I love his stuff, and I have some sketches from Chris Sanders, who did, like, he was a Disney artist who did Stitch and a bunch of other stuff. And
Very
I have
cool.
some of his, like, he was drawing stitches at a light box, and I got one of those that I really love. And then I have some I have one painting by a Ghibli background painter. It's not a Ghibli background, it's a personal painting he did, but Yoichi Nishikawa, who had an exhibition. Gallery Nucleus did a exhibition of his work at San Diego. They're doing it now, I think, in LA. I think they're in LA. And
wow.
I've never been to the actual gallery. I've seen their stuff at Lightbox and at online. But anyways, they had a booth and they had all of his paintings on the wall, and some of them were available for sale. So I ended up buying one of those. It just looks like a Ghibli background, but it's amazing. I love his stuff. You should definitely
Yeah, I'll check that out.
check
I
him
love
out. He's amazing.
Ghibli's beautiful work. I mean,
Yeah, he's
I grew
amazing.
up watching that. We were blessed to have Cartoon Network. Well, it was Toonami
Yeah,
later at night, and then you would get all the stuff from,
totally. Yeah,
the Pacific. Like you would get
yeah. Oh my God,
Chinese or Japanese. You get all the great
that's
stuff.
like,
But you had to wait till like 11 p.m.
oh yeah. Waiting until like 1 a.m. and then watching random Cowboy Bebop is like a very
Yo.
specific memory. Getting Jack in the Box tacos, which are the grungiest, and watching Cowboy Bebop at like 1 o'clock in the morning.
Cowboy Bebop's. I love that show, man.
Yeah, I love that show a lot too.
Yeah, me too. That's
obviously
good
everything
show.
that Watanabe, I guess, the director. I've really liked everything he's done. Obviously he's really well known, but Cowboy Bebop is like really special to me because of that. I can't imagine even doing that now, eating tacos at 1 a.m. The idea,
No, I'd be done.
I would be so sick and sleepy and everything. But
Yeah, to call out of work.
Yeah, exactly. We
So
my wife and I, we met waiting tables at an Outback Steakhouse, so we would get like, you get like half off or whatever, and so we would get just ridiculous huge steak meals and then go home at like midnight when you finally got out.
yeah, that's funny. So with the Usagi, the story moved the mythology into 1984 Osaka, instead of the traditional history. So what did that change or allow you to do artistically?
Well, one thing that I really liked that was a sort of through line between the two that made me happy drawing it was, one of my favorite things about the Edo era original series is the fashion that people wore and all the fabrics and like the patterns, but also just the like the big fabrics, and how interesting, think like everybody's outfits were, where fashion and outfits is what I was trying to say. But in the 80s, the interesting through line between the two is that it also had a lot of like billowy fabrics and like big bright colors and patterns and things. So I thought that was really interesting kind of connection between the two worlds. Is that everybody is still in, relatively, burly kind of thick fabrics. And there's a lot of room to play with that in terms of story. So like I joked, we were doing live chats, me and Stan and Zach, where we would talk about like the issue and look at original art and talk about it. And one of the things I brought up on that was that I always have like Tomo as one of the characters, and she in our version is wearing a trench coat. So I always would joke that the jacket is always like there's no gravity. Like I always love having it like, flapping in the wind. So wherever she's standing, it's always dramatically kind of like blowing in the wind. Same with her hair,
like
I
the shadow.
Really yeah. So I like being able to do that with the characters. But yeah, like we spent a lot of time discussing what we wanted to do in terms of, well, characters, villains, and then like how we wanted it to connect back to the original, and certainly connect back to the original visually too. So, like one of the things I had initially thought of that I wanted to do, which ended up getting into it in like the second issue, was like a vision sequence where he goes back and he sees the original Yojimbo at one point. Because I thought that would be an interesting dynamic of seeing that world and those people, because the way we had sort of thought about it is it's almost like planets aligning or whatever, where it's like these sort of souls or whatever you want to think of it as, not to be too like woo woo about it or whatever. They kind of go off and then they just in the chance of the way destiny goes, they end up crossing paths again. So like Tomo and Miyamoto and Yukichi, his cousin, and these different characters, Kitsune the fox and Jen the rhino, and all these characters sort of like they go off and then they end up crossing paths again. So I thought it'd be interesting because he's aware of Jen and Tomo and these different people he's aware of them in Osaka where they live or are passing through. And I thought it'd be interesting if he did go back at one point, go back in time and see the original cast and characters in some sort of state, whatever that is. And it ends up being turmoil in the story, but so that was something we wanted to do to kind of connect back to the original source. And then also trying to have something that basically we just were wanting to make sure we had everything in line with what we really loved and connected with that was authentic to the original series, because so much of the original Yojimbo series is like the heartbeat of it, I think, is authenticity and development. And it's so authentic to the time that like they even have it in some textbooks, in Japan, because like he researches so extensively, like goes to Japan, actually like goes to places and studies and researches people in history. So we wanted to make sure we had something that would honor that, and also allow our kind of like 8-year-old to 12-year-old selves, like what kind of love letter would we write at that age to this thing that we really love, and in that way we wanted to connect to people who also love Yojimbo too. So the series, we wanted it to read like a coherent story, of course, that's sort of the goal, and have characters that you connect with, that you can kind of grow with, but also get the sense that we genuinely love this series and that there's a genuine love. So the series is supposed to be a kind of love letter to the original, and not just sort of its own thing. And we wanted to make sure it was that first, and not just something that was like, we had a pile of ideas that were growing of stuff that we thought would be cool, but we felt like is it authentic to the original idea and series, or is it cool for cool's sake? And if it was cool for cool's sake, we cut it out. And so we wanted to make sure it was streamlined to just the things that we felt honored and reflected the authenticity of the original series, and was authentic as possible to modern 80s. So we spent a ton of time researching films and things, and Zach goes to Japan usually like once or twice a year. So he's very much connected to Osaka and just understanding the culture and things, minor things that things that they would do, like ways that they would behave or interact with the world. So that, because our keeping with the idea of hoping it would be authentic, I didn't want it to seem like we were doing a thing that was set in Manhattan. I wanted to make sure that it was not just like basically New York or like a big city that they happened to be in that we're calling Osaka. So like a lot of the environments and the backgrounds are actual places. So Zach, he goes to Osaka regularly, so he took hundreds of pictures. So I collected tons of his pictures and things I could find. So a lot of the environments and places that they go, I think they even put it in the back of one of the issues. You could follow. We plotted the story literally on a map, so you could go street by street and follow the environments. The environments in most of the scenes are real places, in as much as I draw, which is a lot of times quite loose. So, people might be like, well, I would tell if he could actually draw, but I tend to paint backgrounds fairly loosely. So, but the parts that are tighter are real places and environments. The place that they go to meet Sasuke, where they end up finding the temple, the spirit temple they go to is not a real location, but the waterfall and the place that they go to, those are all real places. Parts around the city, the places they reference. It was one of those things that we also felt this weird kismet relationship to, because I typed in Osaka when we were like, we want to set it somewhere. We'll set it in maybe Osaka initially, because I like the idea of a city that was authentic to the concept of new and old overlapping, where it felt like Tokyo was very modern, and Osaka seemed like a city that was a lot of like ancient building set up next to a big modern cube, and then
I love that.
skyscraper, and then ancient shrine, ancient like tile roof. Like it's a very like eclectic mix visually, and the shape design, I think, of the environment, which is usually what I tend to think in, is the shapes that you're seeing these structures in, seem to me to be very interesting. So we picked Osaka, and I typed Osaka in the Googles, and the first thing that came up was Sakai, and I was like, oh, that's probably wrong, or like a mistype or something, or it's like digging in my own search history or something. But it turned out that I just happened to land on the neighborhood Sakai Ward or whatever, which is part of Osaka. So it was like I felt like this weird, like, okay, well, maybe we're in the right place, if it's like
that's a sign,
this connection. So so like they travel through, like they travel through Sakai Ward. Their like hideout is in Sakai Ward, and so you see there are parts of it that those are real places in Sakai Ward. They reference like the lighthouse. There's a lighthouse there and some other stuff. So anyways, they so we wanted to keep it as authentic to the original material as possible. But I mean, even Stan was like very open to, like, he was like, do whatever he's like, if you want to come up with more characters or do something different, don't feel like you have to be like totally married to it. But we didn't want it to be totally brand new either, because we wanted to have something that the people like us who are mega fans could connect with, and not feel like, oh, they've changed everything, or like swapped people around or made them different. So we wanted to at least have a core cast who were familiar faces, who are maybe just a little different, or they come at it from a different dynamic.
And as a fan,
which was Zach's idea. One of the things we wanted was which was Zach's idea, was to take initially I had done a bunch of concept sketches of Tomo, but she was more like a kind of a damsel, which I wasn't happy with, but I couldn't think of anything else. And so I had just sort of drawn her in like a sweater and high top jeans, sort of being saved by because I wanted her to be a part of it and be connected to Usagi at some point. And we had talked a lot about the idea of him being growing up in a very like poor neighborhood in a booming economy. So he grows up in like a very impoverished neighborhood in a booming economy that brought about a lot of like gang violence and corruption in the government, like it does everywhere. And so he has a kind of Robin Hood sort of moral code where he is trying to give back in the only way he knows how he can. And we liked the idea of him being a kind of Lupin figure, because Lupin was also a huge influence on both of us, especially for me because of the connection to Hayao Miyazaki for the I can never say it right, but the castle. I can never say it right, but the one that Miyazaki directed, the Lupin the Third film, and so I have always been hugely influenced by that movie, and particularly the storyboarding and the action sequences, like the car chases, of course, and that kind of thing. So that had a big influence on what we were thinking. And then Zach was the one who was like, "Oh, we should have Tomo be like a police officer, kind of like the opposite." The detective in Lupin who's always chasing him, the one who's always like, they jump the bridge and he's like Lupin or whatever.
Yeah.
So like we thought it'd be fun if we had Tomo be if he was growing up in this environment, what if she grew up? Because we wanted her to be something that was much in the way, because as much as we could connected to her original character and personality. So we wanted her to be tough, basically, and not, because all my initial drawings were like too soft and kind of like damsel in distress. And so he was the one that was like, what if she's like a really tough cop, and we start them out on odd, like they're reconnecting and forming a bond, but instead they're coming from opposite ends. So they start out as like enemies in our series. So he is the kind of Robin Hood figure, and she is a police officer. She's doing the best to get the same. We wanted the same kind of moral code, but she's coming at it from a different neighborhood and a different perspective, in that she wants to give back to her community and right wrongs and do what's right, but she's coming at it from a different perspective. So she is a police officer, and so she's always trying to catch him, and so they end up having to work together, and they end up we always wanted them to end up on the arc of their original relationship, so which becomes the sort of heartbeat of the future of where they go. But we wanted them to start out as enemies initially. So that was something that was connected to the original part.
Yeah, that's great.
I've like talked myself so far away, I can't even remember what the initial question.
No, you were spot on, man. And it's crazy how much attention to detail and research that went into making it really feel like 1984 Osaka. So kudos to you guys, the whole team. It's incredible.
I don't know if you've ever gotten around to it. There's like one of my favorite Yojimbo comics is the one that the whole thing is just a tea ceremony between speaking of Tomo, but there's one that is just Tomo and Usagi doing a intricate tea ceremony together, and that's it. And it's just sort of I mean, it's a very intense like friendship story, connection between them. I can't remember. I think it might be in the 6th saga. I have to look it up. Maybe I'll try to get back to you with it. I'm sure if we Googled, whatever I
have them in my
tea.
In my long box. I gotta go downstairs and look at them.
It's a really good one, but it was very authentic to the culture and very authentic to that practice. And that was one of the biggest influences, was how do we create this thing that is authentic to the culture and the time and what it felt like. So if you watch movies like Tampopo or whatever, like we wanted it to feel like that, because everybody's wearing very specific fashion. Even like the camera angles and the way that Japanese films were made in the 80s, we spent a lot of time studying those, like going through them and just looking at the types of things that they would do with the camera specifically, so that it would influence the way we design like the layouts for the panels, because you know, like there are certain things that cameras do, like in the 90s when we were kids, you know, remember how like they would zoom in grotesquely constantly.
Oh,
Like
hell yeah,
like
Ren and Stimpy.
Yeah, that too. And but like even films, like movies.
Oh yeah, even
They
films.
do a
Yeah,
lot of this, like where the camera goes right up to the tight
wild
person's
detail
face and
of
stuff. Yeah, and it was
grotesqueness.
like, so we wanted to, we were trying to like catalog as many of those kinds of things that was done in 80s Japanese film and in 80s pop culture in Japan, because we were trying to make sure that stuff was more of the influence, because we didn't want it to be too, like, I think the temptation was to make it, especially because I was very nervous, because I kind of didn't want it to be set in the 80s, because the 80s is such a sort of pop culture like balloon or whatever, that I didn't want it to be. I wanted it, I initially I didn't want it to be in the title, but that was on their end. But I'm not mad about it, but I'm just saying, like, initially I didn't really want it to be mentioned ever that it was the 80s, because I think there's this temptation to sort of link it to the 80s. And I did not want that to happen. And I don't think it totally has. Hopefully people read the book and they didn't feel, I wanted it to feel like the 80s, but not feel like it felt like we were trying to make a thing that was set in the 80s, if that makes sense. So like,
I get what you mean.
Because a lot of that is heavily influenced. I feel in my, and this is because I was born and raised here, a lot of that to me is very influenced by American 80s stuff. So like any of the properties that like come about would be like, you know, like, I don't know, like Ghostbusters or like Goonies or stuff that like, I don't know, it felt very American. The influences that would then be, I didn't want that to influence it, is what I'm getting at. So we avoided as much as possible anything that was related to the 80s that had, I mean, they had, obviously they had American movies there. They weren't totally separate, but they also had a very specific film culture too. So, and movies that were fantastic movies that were produced. So we tried to stay in a zone, especially in that 7-month period where we were leading up to actually doing it, where we were really focused on those films from Japan in the 1980s, just to make sure like the cars like were reading pretty clearly, and the clothes that people wore, and stuff. I just didn't want it to be too much like it was trying to connect to something that felt American 80s, which is sort of its own thing, you know.
Yeah, I totally get what you mean. 80s Americana.
Yeah,
Like,
right.
Yeah. The pop culture, no influence. I mean, it's funny to think, because I would feel, I mean, it would probably be more in Tokyo, right? Not Osaka, but I would feel like the West Coast of America was influencing Japan. Japan was influencing,
Totally.
us with their 80s, like, so it was like this melting pot of mixing of like,
totally.
arts.
There's a lot of that,
across the Pacific, it's wild.
There's a lot of that.
And now we look back at it and we're like, oh, those were great movies, and manga and all this stuff. Now we see what's happening with sales of some of these, the comics from over there and the manga and everything.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Oh my goodness. It's like,
yeah, especially those shonen
the Shonen Jump,
jumps and stuff.
Was there like a particular piece of feedback or advice from Stan that really stuck with you?
He was so open-minded. He was not very pushy about anything. I mean, everything went to him. He was like the green light for everything. So everything would go to him. But he really he has a lot of respect for other artists' vision of I don't want to call myself like an artist or whatever, like with a capital A, like it's like I'm somehow special or whatever, but like he has a lot of respect for other people's like picture making and like ideas. And so he's very open-minded about it, and he's very much like I want to see what you want to see, what you see this as, and what you want to do with it. So he he was not overly like micromanagey about stuff. He would chime in about some things. It was like I initially didn't have a scar on the character, and he was like, why don't let's do the scar so there's like a through line and stuff like that over here and there.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And then he would choose stuff, you know, like for covers or things, like I'd submit a bunch of, that's kind of standard in general. You just submit a bunch of ideas, they pick a direction. But he never really was, you know, picky about stuff. He was always very much like just like cheering us on in a very kind, honest way, which was almost scarier, to be honest, because we were like, both of us were sweating the whole time we did the book, because we were like, not only did we love Usagi, now we really, really love the guy, and it was like, we really don't want to let him down. It's gonna hurt double if this book flops. It's gonna hurt double now, and be all our fault. But we you know, quadrupled our effort, because we just wanted to make sure it was the best thing that we could possibly make it be. But yeah, he was totally open to everything, honestly. You know, I would love any advice. I had the original pages, and I was like, hey, if you have any advice on how I can get better, you know, I always want to hear it. But he's never been you know, like that in that way. He's just always such a champion for other people's visions, even with his own world, you know.
Yeah, and that's awesome that he was very interested in like the watercoloring technique you were doing.
Yeah, that was fun. That was just incidental, because he just happens to like watercolor on the side of comics in general. Like, so we would talk about like sketches and like painting, like, you know, plein air painting or stuff like that was not comics related at all.
Yeah, that's cool. That's what, you know, that's what it's about, right? Building that relationship and having some kind of common thing to talk about, except something, and it's a legend, you know, a hero.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
that's
got to be
like
a really
dream,
cool
you know?
feeling. Yeah, a dream. There you go. Yeah, that's awesome. So like moving into like original art and stuff, do you feel out of any of the pieces that you've done or that you've sold later, wished you had kept? Like, oh man, I shouldn't have let that piece go.
I mean, I don't know. I've had a pretty lucky run in terms of I don't know if it's just, I mean, I've never had just like people pouring over wanting to buy stuff I've done. So it wasn't just like, I mean, I've always had selling my originals. Like, to be totally honest, like, I don't totally understand how digital artists make it, to be totally honest, because a lot of what I do, I have to kind of sell part of it. Like, part of it ends up being, typically, just having worked in comics now for a while in general, usually it is something where I kind of have to sell the book and then hopefully sell the original, or some of the originals at least, or parts of the original pages, just in general. Which is nice, being a traditional only, because I usually have piles of stuff that I can hopefully sell. But I mean, I have some things that like that I did that meant something to me. But honestly, like I've had a lucky run of knowing the people, or if they happen to be comics collectors, that I really like that person. So a lot of the ones that I've sold that I really liked were to someone that I really liked.
Mm-hmm.
And I can kind of go, well, I kind of think like, okay, well, you know, I'm glad they have it. Like, you know, some things now I've been able to choose to keep, you know, more than I did earlier on, where it was sort of like get through the book as fast as possible, and then everything must go clearance sale kind of thing. But so anymore, like I've like the covers for the Kaitō books and stuff. I'm like, okay, well, maybe on these I'll, you know, if my kids want some, I don't know what they'll do with them, but some pictures that I've done or whatever, you know, something other than just like paint boxes or whatever. Eventually, when I do go, you know, that they could have a couple of them if they want them or whatever. But yeah, so I don't have any huge regrets, mostly because it's all been sort of I don't know, I've always kind of seen painting as I don't know, grist for the mill, sort of Like I tend to think more in terms of, I don't really think of myself as like an artist with a capital A, or like that I'm creating some sort of meaningful thing that is gonna change generations or whatever. I tend to think of myself more as a fry cook, and I just generate these pictures all the time, and they make me happy to do them. But honestly, I've never really gotten over the drive of wanting to get better to a point of, once I usually finish a picture, I don't really like to look at it again, because usually I feel a bit of like shame or embarrassment, and I want to move on to the next thing. So I don't have too much of an emotional connection to any of the pictures I make. It was something that I very specifically wanted to train out of myself by drawing 7 hours a day or whatever for as long as I have, because to me, so much of it is quantity, and just trying to get the miles in to get better, because I want to get better. And every time I do a picture, I have a hard time seeing much other than flaws, and how I want to get to the next sort of, milestone, even though that kind of like goalpost always moves. Every time I've actually done the thing I wanted to do, it never really feels like enough. I usually end up feeling kind of depressed, because I feel like the goalpost has kind of moved,
Jeez.
and I want to do this thing is more important to me. I want to get this thing, or get better, or have it look a certain way or whatever. So I don't I tend to sort of see the pictures as just the part of the process to get to the next thing that I want to do, or the story idea I want to do. So I haven't really had a lot of like emotional connection to a specific thing that I felt like, oh no, I wish I hadn't sold that. And honestly, like a lot of my other stuff I've mostly like thrown away, which I know people are like, say, don't throw your stuff away. I just don't like looking at my old drawings, because they make me kind of sad. So I wouldn't tell young people to do that, but that was something I just felt like, this is encumbering me and I have to cut this thing off. So I've made a practice of, most of the drawings I do, I just throw them away or whatever. But or paintings or whatever that pile, because they just pile up too, like drawings and paintings and sketchbooks and stuff. So, but I don't know, it's probably not a very satisfying answer. I don't know.
No,
I don't have a lot of
it's a great conversation. Get to hear your point of view on it. That's all. And you're too modest, man. You're way more than a fry cook. I mean, you did literally one of my favorite man things.
Oh, cool.
Ever.
I like
with the raccoons, bro. I mean,
yeah,
it's on the wall. I'll grab it.
I love drawing that character. That's a fun character, man.
Probably have glare because of the glass, but whatevs.
Yeah, that was a fun, man.
Yeah,
fun one.
One of my favorite pieces with the raccoons. I named it. I call it Guardian, because he's like the guardian of the forest.
Yeah, I like that. That's awesome.
Yeah. And then I have your piece. Acosta brought it up, actually. He said, thanks for coming to OAX, Jared. Your original art was a huge hit and very affordable.
Oh, cool. That show was so much fun. That was.
And then this is the piece I picked up from you there.
Yeah. That was really fun.
Which was the Joker and Batman, which is fucking awesome, man.
It was super fun.
Yeah, it's so great work. I love your style.
Thanks,
and
man.
Yeah, I hope to see you again at another show. And
OAX was so fun. That was my first year doing OAX, and that was truly a fun show. It was hard to sit at the table. That was like,
right?
I was like, I need to be absorbing this, like, because everyone, the heavy hitters are just like right there. I was like, God, I need to go look at what they're doing. and they have all the like animation art too, like the cells and stuff. It was fun to flip through.
I know. I bought a whole bunch. I bought a whole bunch of animation cells.
Yeah, there was a bunch of background art from Dragon Ball Z that I was like, you know what? But I didn't end up getting it. But it was it was cool to see. It was awesome.
Yes, if anything, it was just awesome to see that present, be able to walk through it, and just, oh my God, I remember that episode. It was so dope.
Yeah, totally. It was fun.
That's actually where I bought my first animations, production art for Black Clover. I don't know if you ever heard of Black Clover. It's a cool show. Me and my son watch
it.
it
Down though.
Yeah, Black Clover. It's dope, man. The last season I think is coming out on Crunchyroll, and I got a whole bunch of production art. Yeah, now I have a whole lot, but that was where I got my first.
Very cool.
They don't. There's no cells because it's digital,
right.
But they do production art for like the storyboards and everything. So that's like the best you can get. So I got a whole bunch of that, but it's actually all up there. I haven't even opened it yet because I'm like, where am I going to put this? I need to like do a whole bunch of stuff, but that's like you said, I got some other things to put in before that.
Oh yeah, I know. I've like got portfolios, and I'm like, man, I like thinking about cycling stuff, and I don't know how to fit it all up.
That's a great point. Cycling things. Yeah, I gotta shift things around and put other things up.
Get a rotation going.
So you're juggling books, comics, commissions, teaching. How do you manage everything?
Oh man, I don't know. One thing at a time. I mean, that's not a very satisfying answer, I'm sure, but just keep. I mean, I have a huge whiteboard here that I just kind of keep track of things. And a lot of it is stuff that I really love doing. So at least I'm very passionate about it, and I'm excited about doing it. So
nice.
That is something. I genuinely like teaching. I mean, I got into teaching because it was something to do on the side. But I learned a lot of what I think about painting and color and those kinds of choices. But that I learned through teaching, because when you have to put it into words, you have to kind of figure out like actually why, if you're choosing a certain blue for something, you have to kind of answer why. So I love teaching, and I try to teach as much as I can. When I'm really deep in the comic stuff and illustration, I don't have as much time for it, but I really do love teaching and then working on books just as much as I can.
Yeah, that's very
right
cool.
Now I'm a little inundated with comic stuff, so I haven't had time to teach lately, but occasionally I'll get to do like a online workshop or something, which is always fun.
Yeah, that's always cool. That's very cool. Teaching is it's I can't do it, but I'm always willing to learn something new, and it's something that I've been trying, because like I've been learning how to like paint miniatures for like Warhammer and stuff.
Yeah, that's very
and
cool.
I just been watching some videos, and there's some people out there who just naturally can teach, like just by the way they talk and they explain something. And it's like, then you watch some other videos and you're like, oh, that person's kind of just, I'm not really picking it up what they're trying to put down. You know what I mean? Then it's like, so it's like,
there's a
kudos
lot of that, especially
to
with
teaching. Yeah. Yeah. Kudos. Cause it's not easy. It's not, it's like you said, the rule of 1,000, you just got to keep at it, which I'm trying.
Yeah.
I always think I'm doing good, and then I show my one friend my progress, and then he shows me his picture, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm not doing good. One day.
I know how that goes.
So, are there like more stories you'd like to tell within the Usagi Yojimbo universe?
Oh, totally. I mean, like, well, we definitely, we have more stuff coming in terms of like ideas for Kaitō. So there's a lot more stuff we want to do. A big part of like the next chunk is we want him to get to the sword. So like in the whole, initially the sketches that I was doing, I had him with the swords and all the stuff and like a cooler jacket and all kinds of stuff. But we kind of wanted you to go on the journey with him, starting from nothing, kind of like starting a Zelda game or whatever, where you start with nothing and you have to earn these things. So we wanted the sword to be part of his journey. So he has to kind of like make the decision whether or not he wants to actually do this, join this lineage and become part of this sort of greater idea. And then on top of that, then he now has to go on a quest to sort of find these different pieces of piecing together this legacy. So that's kind of the bigger idea that we want to do with the character. And then there's a lot of like subsets of ideas that we want to do as well.
Very cool, man. Looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to the winter book. That's gonna be cool.
Yeah, I'm excited about that one. That one's funny. It's that was Zach. He immediately popped off a bunch of ideas, and he had a really funny idea, and that was both funny and heartfelt. So I was immediately I was like, well, I mean, I liked all the ideas he did, and I was actually kind of hoping we could sort of it's not a full book, so we don't have tons of pages, but I was like, initially I was like, man, if we could do a little of this one and then they do this, and then but I'm glad we ended up picking the one, and then Stan and the team and everybody picked the same. So I'm really excited about that story. So I'm drawing it now, actually, so we'll be painting that in the next month.
Oh, that's great. That's great. All right, so is there anything that you'd like to bring up that we didn't touch on tonight?
I mean, Kodi 2 is coming out, which if people want to, you could find it. September 1st is when it comes out, or pre-order if you'd like, and all that stuff helps in a huge way. And then I have the Beneath the Trees coming, and the Twilight Zone, and then the winter special for Usagi. So and then I'll have more stuff in the future to talk about with the other book I'm working on.
Very cool. Very cool.
Jared, online.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. Which and I put the links in the description of the video, so make sure to check out Jared's website. Cool. Yeah, it's all in here. Got some awesome updates on there. Links to be able to purchase. Can you purchase your book through your website?
Usually, yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes I'm out of them, and then if I do a con, sometimes I'll sell out, and then I have to reorder everything, and I have to kind of go dark for a little bit. But usually, yeah, and I can sketch on it or whatever.
Oh, cool. Yeah, there you go. So make sure to check all those out. Jared, I really appreciate you taking the time to hang out with us tonight. I think what's really interesting about your work is that whether you're creating something completely on your own, like Kodi or Kodi 2, with returning to that world, or stepping into a legendary universe like Usagi Yojimbo, the art always feels incredibly personal. And for collectors, I think that's what makes original art so special. You're not just buying an image, you're buying a piece of creative process and a piece of the artist's story. Make sure you guys follow Jared and check out his work. Keep an eye out for Kodi 2, A Place to Call Home, in September. And if you haven't checked out Usagi, I'm jumbled on my words there. Usagi Yojimbo, Kaitō 84. Go grab those issues. Jared, thanks.
The trade paperback comes out too.
Oh, it does?
Yeah.
When's that?
Yeah, I think November. There's a limited edition hardcover, and I sketched in all of them, so that'll be coming out too.
How do you get that?
I think you can pre-order it now also.
Oh, wow. I want to make sure to check that out. Yeah, because
and then I'll have some copies, and they'll probably be around.
Yeah, I would love a hard copy with the sketch in it. That's
cool. Awesome.
That's what I'd be looking for. I'll put it right up over here.
Awesome.
Absolutely. So until next time, my friends, keep collecting, keep creating, and as always, ramble on, my friends.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
All right. Bye.
Bye.